What's up? Welcome in. It's that time of the week. The Sooners on SI podcast, episode 260, a big one coming at you. I'm Ryan Chapman out here in Moore. That is John Hoover up in the night. How we doing?
We're ready to start calling some plays. Let's go. Headsets on, microphones in place. Oh, that's never mind. That's Joe John Finley. My bad.
That's not us. That's not
Nope,
us.
not my
Although
responsibility, not my salary either.
couldn't get much worse, so I'd like their salary because I think that I couldn't do worse than the absolute worst.
You're pretty
Historically,
gifted. You're pretty gifted at the Madden and the NCAA. I think you could give it a shot for that much money.
you know what? It's historically bad. So how much worse could it get? We
Right?
we, we do it every week, and it somehow gets worse.
They'd be
That'll
like,
dominate a lot of discussion today.
they'd be like,
Obviously,
fire this Ryan Chapman guy and pay him his $2.6 million buyout. And Ryan's like, yeah, cool. Let's go.
I will take that. You don't even have to. I don't have to do a game. Just I'll show up on Monday. So what I'm doing dismissal.
Sorry
Obviously,
for the sarcasm. Sorry for the sarcasm.
yeah.
But not
Sorry.
really. We're not really sorry.
Hold on. We have to be nice and professional.
It's a coping
Uh,
mechanism.
Well, whatever. This team sucks. What do you want us to do? You really want us to break down Jacob Sexton whiffing blocks over and over? Like, do you want more of that?
Please
You've
no.
seen enough of it. You've seen enough of it. Joe John Finley, Kevin John, Seth Littrell. That's going to dominate what we talk about today. We will be joined up with John Macon Gillespie, who does a great job. Ole Miss Rebels on SI. We'll be previewing Ole Miss and everything that happens this weekend. If nothing else, some great travel tips with John for anyone making that trek out there. We'll cycle back through, talk about what the players said on Tuesday night, all that stuff. I was at OU men's basketball media day today, and if you want sarcasm, you should probably just turn it off because it's not going to stop there. Let's start all the way back, though, who we Saturday night do our post-game podcast, certified fresh from the stadium in Norman, wondering what the future of this offense was going to be. Sunday, there were rumors, but nothing official until about 4 o'clock. It really heated up. By about 5:30, Oklahoma had announced they were making a change. Seth Littrell out. Joe John Finley will step up into the play calling role. And analyst Kevin Johns, formerly of Duke fame the last 2 years, among many other stops, he was going to get elevated from analyst to co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So, Hoove, as we're burning the midnight oil on Sunday, what was your initial reaction of what had changed from last Tuesday, or I guess 2 Tuesdays ago now, when Brent Venables had talked about, I've never been on the staff that's done mid-year changes, yada, 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 to Sunday night when ultimately they had to pull the trigger on firing Seth Littrell?
Yeah, it's interesting. I must have drank the Kool-Aid. I must have settled in, gotten too comfortable, believed what they were saying, right? And I mean, everybody talking to Seth after the game on Saturday night, talking to Brent after the game on Saturday night. I didn't get the feeling, and maybe I'm getting old in my old age. I'm getting soft in my old age. You know what I mean? But I didn't get the feeling that anything was imminent. Obviously, we knew walking out of that stadium, actually, probably middle of the first quarter, we knew that there was going to be a change at the offensive coordinator position at Oklahoma. My presumption was always and always has been that it was going to be at the end of the season. So when the news came out, people started posting about it, reach out to our sources, start confirming. Holy crap, they did it. He pulled the trigger. He literally pulled the trigger on Seth Littrell. That I will admit, I fully expected it in November/December. I did not expect it in the middle of October. Caught me by surprise. So what changed? I got to think it's one thing. Probably a lot of things, but I got to think one thing stands out more than anything else. And that was the insistence that tight ends on the Oklahoma offense were capable of blocking South Carolina's all SEC defensive ends. 3 times in the first quarter. 3 times. They tried that. They did it with a little motion. They did it with just a little flex wing side, kick slide and collapse down. It was a disaster all 3 times. There were guys in the backfield all 3 times causing havoc. 2 of those were turnovers, and one of those was returned for the touchdown, the fumble, obviously. You cannot block elite players. I'm sorry, that was the interception. The second interception. You cannot block elite players with guys who come out in media interviews and say, I'm not a very good blocker. I need to work on that. I need to get better at that. And yet that happened 3 times in the first quarter, and 21-0, which makes you wonder, makes you ask the question, and maybe we should have asked the question like you just did. What changed? Brent, did you and Joe John get in a, or not Joe John, did you and Seth get in a fight? Was there like arguing and back and forth over the headsets? Was he telling you this is the game plan and I know it's going to work, and you were saying, get those guys some help? Let's change our protection schemes. Get those guys out of the game, because there was an obvious, Ryan, an obvious disconnect in the performance on the field and what should have been happening. What you think the team prepared for all week long? You can't prepare and say, go into that game and say, this is our game plan, and then 4 minutes into the game it's 21-0, and have any shred of belief that that game plan was ever sound, that ever would have worked. So that's the disconnect that I would like to know a little bit more about.
Yeah, it just, you and I are not the film junkie X's and O's. Like when we leave here, we don't go back into our man cave and put on film from every team across the country and diagram and grade out. You do a great, really extensive, post-game film review, which you can always find OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. But I don't think we bill ourselves as like we are the football guru or
Right.
stuff like that. You and I talked about all week, whether it be when we're just talking before press conferences, stuff like that, and Norman on the podcast of like, man, they're going to have to find a way to figure this out with the defensive ends because this is a problem. And you can't, not only can you not leave your offensive tackles on an island, we had said that you can't trust these guys. You can't ask these guys to block. We had said it so much so that a couple of listeners got mad, I guess, because they're members of the tight end family. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. Well, you didn't want our sarcasm. You got a very real, it was a sarcastic game plan, I guess, an arrogant game plan. And just leaving those guys out there. And I think here was like maybe the real big difference. The Tennessee game was over at halftime, but it wasn't over 3 possessions in. The Texas game was over once Texas put 14 points on the board, but you were still, it was not outside the realm of possibility at 14-3, very, very close to halftime, that OU could stumble their way and do a big play on offense, then get like a pick six, and then, oh my gosh, you're sitting there and it's 17-14. Was it Tram that had the line that the game kicked off at 11:47, and by 12:01, it was over. The game was done. The fans before the pick six were booing that Michael Hawkins Jr. was coming back onto the field. I don't think that was all on Michael Hawkins Jr. I think it was that they have seen enough of this BS offense that is one of the worst in the history of the school, one of the worst in Power 5 football in the last decade. I think that got to it. And if Brent Venables wasn't going to make this call, I really wonder, this is a group that's going to have to overhaul this offensive line in the portal this offseason. There might have to go in for a quarterback and be in the starting quarterback market, which means money in today's NIL landscape. Those donors who are going to have to be the ones to foot that, if you don't see some sort of change right now so they can go through the stages of grief about this offense, are they going to be ready and organized on December 1st when Oklahoma needs to have an offensive coordinator basically already in place and needs to start attacking the port? Like, you just need to get the ball rolling now. So I think it was a rip the Band-Aid off. It had hit the point of no return. And maybe now you can get different vibes because, again, we'll break this down here. Schematically, you're not going to run a new offense, right? Let's live in, it's not fantasy land. I don't think anyone's
Probably
under any.
do some things different.
There's small tweaks here or there, but overall, you're going to run basically the same offense. Every offensive coordinator, every defensive coordinator has their own personality they call games, so that'll change. But I think that's what fundamentally had to change. And so Brent Venables talked a great deal about that Monday night on his coach's show, and then he kind of was like, go listen to my coach's show on Tuesday. That was pretty much that. So we had everything he said about the Seth Littrell firing. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Just hit the football tab, scroll just a smidge. It was there from Monday night, all that stuff.
Did you get the feeling, Ryan? Sorry, did you get the feeling that he exposed a little more about Seth Littrell's play calling and game planning than most coaches would have? Did you get the feeling that he's like talking about disconnected plays or play calling that needs to be connected and related? I thought I heard a little bit of that in some of his kind of read between the lines kind of thing.
Not really, and maybe not anything new because there have been throwaway comments here. We need to, game plan and then get to those calls on the play sheet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
things like that that almost kind of I think alludes to the fact that there's some stuff being left out there as far as looks they're not getting into, and that's been constant through the last couple of weeks. I think this almost felt like Brent knew he was going to have to address it head on Monday, and he was so uncomfortable by the staff changes because Brent's a relational guy, right? Like he knows that this affects Seth, a guy who's an alum of Oklahoma, won a national championship there, all that stuff. It affects Seth's family. It affects the unsaid thing is I don't know how many of these offensive assistants are coming back to Oklahoma when the new OC comes in. So he mentioned a domino effect. The domino effect will be a lot of these guys are going to lose their jobs. They're just 6 weeks away from that being confirmed in North. So I think that one of the things I think Brent was just like, I'm going to say what I have to say and I want to get through this. And then he was on to Joe John Finley and Kevin Johns.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, it wasn't just the tight ends blocking. It wasn't just not giving the tackles help. Um, it's been a series, like Brent has referenced. It's been a body of work for Seth Littrell over the last 6, 7 games, 8 games if you go back to the Alamo Bowl, which the Alamo Bowl was not terrible, but they had some other linemen still playing, obviously stuff like that. But it's just been kind of a like Brendan Thompson, for instance, runs a 4.240, we think, runs a 10-100, whatever it is. Why is he not running deep? Why is he catching hitch passes and screen passes? And I don't mean like once in a while. I mean like every time, right? Get that guy running deep. He ran deep on Saturday and he got open about 3 times and caught a 54-yard touchdown. Hey, look at that. Your fastest player split a zone. I don't think that was man-to-man coverage. I think he split a zone and was uncovered for 54 yards. Easy touchdown pass by Jackson Arnold. Where's that been? Why don't they do stuff? Why haven't they done stuff like that more frequently in the first 6, 7 games? It just there's an insistence on the part of the play calling mechanisms that they're using and the part of the game planning that they're using. An insistence, it looks like, a reticence, a bullheadedness, whatever you want to call it, to say, I know that looks like our strength, but we're going to go do this other thing. We're going to put this guy in a position where he's not at his best. We're going to put this guy in a position to block this, grizzly bear over here, right? Even though he can't block. It's just one thing over and over. Every series, it seems, every series, there's something going on where you scratch your head and say, now, why would they choose that instead of this, right? It just looked like that they were not maximizing their players' skills. They were not putting their players in position to win. And I think ultimately that's what cost Seth his job was guys were being asked to do things that they're either not good at or they were not being allowed to do things that they're best at.
And there was no development. I know there's a bunch of injuries. I don't know of anyone that's a better football player right now than they were at the end of the year last year. So you get all that stuff. You can go back through it. Tennessee, we talked all week. What's the strength of this team? The interior of that defensive line. Where did they run? Right, the interior of the defensive line. Made no sense. Texas, you have a true freshman quarterback, the first true freshman to ever start OU Texas on the Oklahoma side of things. What did they do? Made things as complicated as humanly possible for 4 drives. And then that disaster on Saturday. It's done. Seth Littrell sucked. He was awful in these 7 games, and think you can just move on with that. The new brain trust, new boss, same as the old boss, kind of. Joe John Finley, he's elevated to play caller. Kevin Johns will be your quarterback coach. This was pretty simple. Brent Venables talked about it a couple different times. Kevin Johns, when he was hired to be the analyst, the NCAA had not passed the analyst can coach rule. So Kevin Johns was doing mostly advanced scouting stuff, not the X's and O's of Oklahoma's own offense. Joe John obviously doing the X's and O's of Oklahoma's own offense. So Venables said that while Johns has called plays for more than Joe John has one game, the 2017 Alamo Bowl. It was the Drew Lock gets made fun of by Tom Herman game. Missouri's offense was laugh out loud bad. Yep. So maybe something of things to come, but opt out, whatever, all that stuff. Other than that, Joe John, he at least knows the verbiage of all the offense. He's involved in the game planning, all that stuff. So this will be Joe John's shot, I guess, to I hate to be so crude about it, John, and we'll talk about the OC search, but at every one of these offensive guys, when someone has already lost their job, they are coaching for their jobs the rest of this year. And I think this is Joe John's version of that. Is he's gonna get a shot here at calling plays. We'll see what he can cook up, I guess, against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I sure don't think he's going to. I sure don't think he's going to have a chance to keep the job at the end of the season. I think Brent's going to go out and make a splash hire, or at least try to. Um, However, having said that, if Kevin Johns starts coaching quarterbacks, right, which that was another knock against Seth. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not come here today to bury Seth Littrell, and yet he'd never coached quarterbacks before. The guy has never coached quarterbacks before, and all he was given was a 5-star Gatorade National Player of the Year to go out and teach him how to play quarterback in college. Not fair to Seth. Probably more on Brent, right? That decision. Not Seth's fault that he's never coached quarterbacks before. Not Seth's fault that he was told, I know you only coach fullbacks and tight ends, but you're going to coach quarterbacks. So that's a little bit on Brent. That's a lot on Brent. He probably looks back at that decision and says, damn, we should have brought in a quarterbacks coach, because Jackson Arnold might be that 5-star guy that everybody wants him to be right now. So back it up. Kevin Johns is actually coaching quarterbacks, has done it before, has produced some guys. If you go back and look at his lineage, all the players that he's coached, all the places that he's been, all the head coaches that he's worked for, he's got a great resume of coaching quarterbacks. If the quarterback play improves drastically, which how drastic could it be when all your receivers are hurt? Your best receiver is a walk-on freshman, possibly, right? Not tongue-in-cheek there, no sarcasm there. That's real. That's realism is what that is. And your offensive line isn't any better today. It's probably worse today than it was when the season started and everybody was hurt. So if OU is able to overcome those things by great quarterback play and good play calling, and they win 4 of their last 5, Joe John has a chance to keep the job no, he doesn't have a chance. I think they're going to go out and, regardless of how these next 5 games go, I think they're going to go out and make a splash hire.
Yeah, and all that stuff, it gets back to like how much can things really change? So how much actual teaching can Kevin Johns do in a week or 2 weeks time? Yeah. I mean, we've heard that Jackson Arnold's had some issues from Brent Venables, right? As far as the RPO and reading that stuff. Maybe Kevin Johns has a different way of teaching that. And so that starts getting through to Jackson. So maybe he makes a couple better decisions here, there, but I don't think someone that the ball has come out of Jackson's hands late all year, which tells me there's a processing thing. I don't think that that's suddenly going to change in 1 week, but also it's not all on Jackson, nowhere close. We talked about this all year. The conversation Eddie and I were having this week on radio is Oklahoma's offensive line, worst offensive line in the SEC. I know that South Carolina technically has allowed more sacks and all that stuff, but for me, it's Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offensive line, it's not just for me the worst offensive line in the conference, John. It is the single worst position group in the conference. I looked through all these teams. You have a banged up quarterback room, Mississippi State, secondary's been tough at times, stuff like that. I don't see a single position group in the conference that is worse than what Oklahoma's offensive line has done. It doesn't matter who's playing. You could have Baker Mayfield play tomorrow. Maybe Kyler Murray is a better example because he's more mobile. Kyler could start on Saturday for Oklahoma, and that offense is not going to put numbers up because Kyler's going to get the ball and he's going to look up and there's going to be 2 guys in his lap, whether it be Nolan from the middle, whether it be Princely coming off the edge. That is how bad the offensive line is. And that's why fundamentally I don't think anything's really going to change for this group because we always knew the hard ceiling on this team was going to be the offensive line. What we didn't realize is what we should actually be looking for is how low is the floor for this team, because that's how bad the offensive line has been.
Yeah, you're right. And it's hard to watch. It just is hard to watch. Bad football is bad football, but bad offensive line play creates bad football. If you had just a little bit of a modicum of improvement on the offensive line, I think you'd see Javonte Barnes break a run once in a while. I think you'd see Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins be able to stand back there and deliver a pass on time. Think about it, when the quarterbacks are the pocket's clean and they do their 1, 2, 3 and in time, just like the touchdown pass to Brandon Thompson, it was a quick 1-2 step, like pass skeleton, like 7-on-7 back when they were freshmen in high school and they were trying to get recruited. 1-2, throw the ball, He takes off unimpeded off the line, touchdown. Who's going to stop that? When stuff like that happens with any regular consistency, that's good for the offense. And it has just not happened this year for a number of reasons, but primary is the offensive line. And by the way, the sack numbers you referenced, Oklahoma averaging, what was the number? They've given up 29 sacks this year, 29 sacks. That ranks 132nd out of 133 teams in the country. The only team worse, South Carolina, 133, has given up 31 sacks. Like, what? How is South Carolina worse than Oklahoma giving up sacks?
Here's how they're worse. They played next year's SEC game.
That's true. There you go. Yeah.
Simply put. I mean, this group got sacked 3 times against Temple. Imagine it. Imagine flip-flop the Temple game and the sacks that they're going to give up against Ole Miss on Saturday, and I guarantee you that they would be farther behind South Carolina. So thank goodness for getting 3 non-conference games in before you got into the SEC slate, because it's been tough. So I would be stunned if Joe John Finley's back next year. The other underlying thing is the tight end group has been, if it weren't for the offensive line, the tight end room is the worst on the team. It was the worst on the team last year. Kind of unbelievable in a way that not Seth Littrell, Joe John Finley's getting a promotion in the wake when his, it's like, your group's not doing anything either, bro. Like it's not, at least Emmett Jones has the walking wounded over there in the corner, which we'll talk about, a big wide receiver update.
You know who's the best tight end on the field on Saturday?
Who?
Caden Helms.
I would actually say it was Logan Hallen. He's playing offensive line now.
Yeah, I thought Caden got in. He did some H-back stuff. He did a couple of lead blocks, and he was knocking guys off the ball. He was plowing them out of the way. He wasn't asked to go out there and run routes. He wasn't asked to read the defense or to find the zone insert where you're supposed to go. He was asked to go out there and knock the crap out of somebody, and he did it like 3 times. I was like, where's that been?
Yeah, it's been bad. And again, that's a group that's being asked to do something that we know is a weakness of theirs, which comes down to that's coaching, folks.
Yep.
And that's
you're
why
either coaching it or you're allowing it.
Yeah, and they've been allowing a lot of bad. So they're going to need someone new to come in, John, and coach this team a lot differently in 2025. By now, everyone's read all the hot boards out there. And if you haven't, you should go to OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. I put ours together. It's 1,000 words of juicy goodness. Let's start. Before we get into names, I have 2 questions for you, Hoove. 2 questions that I don't think we actually know from Brent Venables, and 2 questions that I don't think that he's actually going to answer until after the season is done, because he has to be focused on this stuff. When it comes to an offensive coordinator, what does Brent Venables want schematically, right? So Levy was brought in to do the veer and shoot, the bear raid. But here's the thing. We were more certain that Jeff Levy was going to be the OC than who the head coach was. Like earlier in the process, in that coaching search, whether it was a Lanning, an Aranda, a Brent Venables, I was pretty sure like Levy was going to be the OC. So for me, that hire doesn't tell me a whole lot about what Brent Venables wants in his offensive coordinator. Does he want to be air raid? Does he want to be veer and shoot? Does he want maybe a more pro style? I don't think we actually know that, truthfully. Then the other side of it is we've seen a huge pendulum swing in his 2 hires. Jeff Levy was ultra young, up-and-comer. He is going to be on that, I'm going to be a head coach in 2 or 3 years track, and he was going to have some on-job learning about game management and stuff like that. The other side of that, Seth Littrell's a guy that's been around football for decades, had been a head coach before, kind of an older head, someone that almost you weren't going to be concerned about the game management, stuff like that. I don't know what Brent Venables wants on that scale either. Of would he rather say, I'm going to get the best offensive mind, and if that means I'm hiring a new OC every 3 years, so be it? Or does he want a Seth Littrell style guy? Because on Brent Venables' staffs that he's been on, Bob Stoops up until Lincoln Riley, it was promote from within, promote from within, promote from within. Clemson was promote from within, stick with Elliott, and then Venables and Elliott were there forever. We haven't seen Brent Venables be on these staffs where they bring in a lot of new blood at the coordinator spot.
Yeah, we've gotten some for whether it was Monday night on the coaches show, or I think he might have mentioned it Tuesday. He talked about the offensive coordinator word salad. He wants a dynamic, explosive, um, variety on offense, be able to run with power, throw it deep, move the chains, go with tempo. He did. He combined all that word salad. Everybody wants that in their offense. Every defensive coordinator, every head coach, everybody wants that as in an OC. What's he going to settle for? Maybe. Um, what's he going to compromise? As the head coach, as the CEO at Oklahoma, as the defensive minded head coach, how much tempo does he really want? How much passing game does he really want? For instance, you said we'll wait to get into the names, but I'll just throw this one out there just real quick as an example. Brennan Marion runs that go offense. They run tempo, tempo, tempo. They do a lot of different things with the quarterback. Is he willing to run a lot of quarterback run game? Does he want a dual threat quarterback? Does he want more of a pocket quarterback like you're seeing with great success down in Austin, Texas? So he's got some decisions to make. Like I said before, he's hired Jeff Lebby and made a big boy decision, put on his big boy pants, and said, "This is the kind of football we want." Now, what's he do? Now, who's he go to? Now, what philosophies does he want his offense to adhere to? What does he want them to look like? So he's got some big decisions to make.
And he's got decisions not negotiating from the strongest hand as far as leverage goes.
Right.
It's Oklahoma, so he's going to attract a bright mind, great resources, SEC tradition. Anyone can recruit to Oklahoma, all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Brent Venables will enter 2025 on the hot seat. I mean, they're staring down the barrel of a 5-7 finish.
Yep.
If you just go, I know that games aren't played in Vegas, but they're going to be underdogs in every one of their SEC games the rest of the way. They'll be heavy favorites against Maine. So if you just go chalk, 5-7 finish, even 6-6, either one of those gets you on the hot seat entering 2025, which means any offensive coordinator coming to Oklahoma, if they're on that track of wanting to be a head coach, things like that, this is a risk. If things do not work out, then you've set yourself back 2 or 3 years on that head coaching track. Now, maybe if you come in and it goes like gangbusters, in 2 years, you're on the Levy plan anyway, stuff like that. But this is an offense that's going to have a brand new offensive line in the portal. If you don't retain Bill Bedenbaugh, then you're going to have to probably reconstruct that class anyway with the best offensive line class Oklahoma's ever signed. Yep. You're going to probably get a bunch of those wide receivers back. Maybe a coaching change might shift all of that. There's not even certainty at quarterback. Does Jackson not even want to come back and play for Brent Venables after the way he's handled this? Does Michael Hawkins Jr. Are any of those guys the future? Do you need to go get a veteran starter? This is not a good situation for an offensive coordinator to walk into. So, like, the guy that's my favorite OC right now, guy that just was hired last year, and Andy Kotelnicki that went from Kansas to Penn State. Why would he leave Penn State for Oklahoma when if he does what he does one more year, he's going to get head coaching jobs? And so I think that's really going to complicate things as we dive into some of these names here.
Yeah, it is, because you're talking about some of the most gifted, some of the most ready-made offensive coordinators, guys who can come to an Oklahoma and say and have instant success. Those guys, they're already on that fast track. Anybody that you can identify and say, well, he'd be a great one at Oklahoma, he's probably already on that upper level fast track, and he's probably been identified or probably already interviewed for other jobs elsewhere around the country. Now, is it as good as Oklahoma? Maybe, maybe not. But if your head coach is on the hot seat, are you going to take a job at OU and say, Coach, this is what I want to run, and not have any assurances that you're going to be there? You can get a 3-year contract. That's great. Everybody wants a 3-year contract. But if Brent is on the hot seat, even with that $44 million buyout, whatever it is, if he's on the hot seat and they lose again next year, there's going to be a house cleaning. And you're going to be an offensive coordinator who just took the Oklahoma job. Again, 3-year contract, 2-year contract even would be nice. A little bit of a golden parachute there, a little bit of job security, great. But that's a disruptive thing to join a staff. You go to an Oklahoma, you can't get it turned around in 1 year. Your head coach gets fired, and then all of a sudden you're out of a job too.
Yeah, well, and you look at it too, like look at Kevin Johns, who's on staff right now. The last 2 years, he was really good at Duke. Riley Leonard was a legit NFL prospect until he got hurt the back end of last season. And then it wasn't a staff firing. Mike Elko went to Texas A&M. He wanted to bring in Colin Klein, all that. Well, guess what? Kevin Johns is the analyst at Oklahoma right now. Like a guy, offensive coordinator who was shredding at Duke with Leonard when he was healthy. That's someone that should have been an offensive coordinator scooped up immediately. Coaching, it's just a weird, your network might not be hiring, right? It's almost about as much who you know and all that stuff. Your network might not be hiring. It's a big risk. So diving into some of the names though, who I think the easiest thing is to branch these off into if Venables goes this direction, here are a few of the names that if that makes sense. So let's go down the air raid path first, because that's where Oklahoma's been pretty familiar. I think the two guys that kind of stand out are ironically two guys that were on the same Western Kentucky staff a couple of years ago. You've got Zach Kittley down at Texas Tech. And then you've got Ben Arbuckle out at Washington State. Arbuckle a year ago set the world on fire with Cam Ward. He's got a sophomore quarterback whose name's escaping me right now. That's on me. But anyway, he is still shredding. Washington State's offense a year ago was 35th in yards per game, and it was fourth in passing. Without Cam Ward, they're now tied for 20th in total offense. So they've somehow taken a step forward without Cam Ward, which sounds insane. And then you got Kittley down at Texas Tech, which for all the issues Tech had earlier this year with the defense, it was not Kittley's fault at all. He's putting up numbers. They're 18th in scoring offense, 19th in total offense. Kittley's been down in Lubbock for a couple of years, so he has those Texas Tech ties. Those guys, for me, John, are the two obvious ones if you just go like straight air raid to start this thing off.
Yeah, that's fair. I think both those guys, those names qualify. I've told you this before. I like Brennan Marion. I like everything about Brennan Marion. I have liked Brennan Marion since he was a wide receiver at the University of Tulsa in 2007, 2008, 2007 might have been. He set the NCAA record. I think it still stands. 39 catches, 1,244 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He scored on, or he had he had catches of 49, 75, 46, 48, 35, 52, 51, 41, 73, 52, 53, 60, 50, 49, 49, 43, and 35. Those were his catches that year. Now, what does that do for you as an offensive coordinator? Not necessarily anything. You know, any nerd could be an offensive coordinator, right? Here's a guy who came out of that record-setting Tulsa offense, knows how to run tempo, has lived it, and he's been on, like I said before, the fast track as an offensive coordinator, knows how to run tempo, knows how to create mismatches, knows what's how to attack defense's strengths and weaknesses, knows how to expose the weaknesses. I just love everything about this guy. For about the last 5 years, he's been one of those guys that somebody is saying somewhere, hey, what about him? Hey, why don't you hire him? Hey, he's a guy that you could possibly hire. I remember people were actually saying Lincoln Riley should give up the offensive coordinator duties and hire Brennan Marion back when he was coaching at Oklahoma. So he's been a guy that's been on this track for a long time. He's at UNLV right now, and they are obviously having another great season.
Yeah, the Matthew Sluka situation hasn't mattered much. He was the wide receivers coach at Pitt with Jordan Addison when he won his Biletnikoff. So maybe he should have gone and coached with Lincoln Riley, and then he would just follow Jordan Addison over. Here's the issue. Is a gimmick offense going to work in the SEC?
I keep hearing that, and that's the thing about this. It's not necessarily a gimmick offense. Mike Leach did the air raid, obviously, at Mississippi State, and it worked. How Mummy did it, and Mike Leach at Kentucky, and it worked.
Did it work by Mississippi State standards? Because we're talking about Oklahoma. We're talking about this is a place that leads the country in innovation on offense. Mississippi State was for Mississippi State standards, it was great, but that was an offense to accentuate when you're overmatched talent-wise every single week.
Yep.
That's not the task of Brennan Marion, and that's why I don't think he's in Oklahoma.
That's why it'll work. Because now you're going to be running. I'll take you back to 2008 when Kevin Wilson and Brent Venables was on that staff and he signed off on it. Kevin Wilson said, Bob Stoops, if if you'll take the reins off, we saw what Sam Bradford could do in 2007. We saw what all these wide receivers are capable of, and this All-American tight end that we've got, and this great running back core that we've got. Let's change the offensive system. This is Kevin Wilson. Let's change to an up-tempo, go, go, go. And we'll be doing it instead of doing what Mike Leach does with the air raid, with the tempo out in Lubbock, Texas, and Pullman, Washington, and Starkville, Mississippi. We'll be doing it in Norman, Oklahoma, and we're going to have all Americans doing it. And that's why Kevin Wilson and that 2008 offense, Oklahoma offense, set every scoring record and every offensive record there was that year, because they were doing this gimmick offense remember 2007, 2008, 2009, the Big 12 was playing for national championships every year, right? Playing for or winning national championships, it seemed like every year, the Big 12. You start running an offense that people can't keep up with schematically, and you're doing it with 4-star and 5-star recruits and All-Americans, guess what? You're back.
They're not going to have All-Americans and 4-star and 5. The offensive line sucks. This offensive line is going to get destroyed.
So then it's perfect, you're saying.
It's going to get
destroyed.
Running this system.
The gimmickiness of it is perfect to start, but when you start getting those 4- and 5-star guys in, you're still running that stuff, then you're going to dominate people. Because like you said, the air raid, one of the great things about the air raid is it levels the playing field. It makes really good players chase really small, slow, undersized, whatever you want to call it,
right,
players that are not 4- and 5-star. You take a guy like Wes Welker that nobody wanted, and you put him in the air raid, and he becomes an All-American. So if you can do that around that offensive line, I say go for it. Run tempo, run all kinds of crap, formations, and confuse people, and stack 3 running backs on the right side of the line, or four receivers on the left side of the line. Make them confused. So I don't know. He's got a lot to think about. Brent does.
Yeah, I think that the Marion offense has a better parallel, and one that also happened in Norman. I think that the Brennan Marion offense is the Alex Grinch defense. Okay. The Alex Grinch defense, which fooled people one year, but the second it went against any SEC offensive line, you know what they were like? All that stunting and all that crap, we're just going to bowl straight through you, and it didn't matter. This Brennan Marion offense, it's outside zone, right? It's basically just outside zone with window dressing, and then you have one read RPO for the quarterback, and you run it really fast. That's basically what it is. Who's running that in Norman? Jackson Arnold can't make a decision. Michael Hawkins Jr. refuses to throw the ball downfield. This offensive line gets bowled through. You don't have any tight ends that can block. What is the motion confusing anyone, John? If Oklahoma goes in motion, you know what Walter Nolan says? Sweet. As soon as he stops running, boom, off the football. That's when they're snapped. Like, I think it would be a disaster. And I genuinely believe if you're going to hire Brennan Marion, just write the $48 million check now. Because I just don't think it's going to work. I think that Marion should take a group of 5 head coaching job. He'll have a ton of success, and then he'll never win a playoff game because actual defensive lines like the SEC would destroy. Because they're just going to be like, yeah, we see outside zone every week. It just has one motion. Congrats, bro.
That's a possibility.
I just think that's a hell of a gamble. That's a hell of a gamble for Brent Venables' job to be honest. If this offense works in the SEC,
he's got to save it. He's got to save his job.
Which we can get into that if we want. Well, maybe that's a discussion for later on in the year when Oklahoma is they're about to be here in 5 weeks, 11-15 in conference play under Brent Venables, and 13-17 against Power 4 opponents, and 5-8 in 1-score games. And by the way, they're not going to play a 1-score game the rest of it. Maybe that's a conversation for later on. But I think it would be a disaster. I think that a lot of these other guys I'm open to. And it's nothing against Marion and this offense. You put this in the SEC, and I think it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, maybe. I think Mike Shanahan's a guy that has raised a lot of curiosity as well, piqued a lot of curiosity on what's going on in Indiana and Kurt Signetti. So that would be another choice that would be one of the guys that I would put on my short list. What's interesting is Brent was asked the question specifically, do you have a short list? Do you keep a little notepad in your pocket or in your top drawer or on your phone or whatever, or up here in your noggin? And he's like, I see what's going on around the country. I keep up with it.
He's like, I keep
Okay.
up. It's always fun. I just with Shanahan, I like Shanahan. I like what Indiana's doing here. And here's the thing: all of it's going to be a risk. Obviously, I'm more slanted toward take any risk other than Marriott. We get that. But like Shanahan, here's the risk. I could be
Haters
totally wrong.
gonna hate.
That's totally fine. Uh, Here's like the risk with Shanahan. Kirk Cignetti's an offensive guy. So like here's what you don't know, right? Is it Shanahan or is it Cignetti? We
Yep.
found out, was it Leipold or was it Kotelnicki? Because Kotelnicki was at every single spot along the way. Kotelnicki has made great strides at Penn State. So like it can go both ways. You can see that maybe it was a little bit more Kotelnicki than Leipold, and Leipold's a great organizer and stuff like that when it comes to the scheme. That worked out well for Penn State. It could work out the exact same way for Oklahoma with like a Mike Shanahan. It could not. So it'll be interesting. A bunch of other names out there. Willie Korn's been thrown out there from Liberty, got some Clemson ties. Craddock at Tulane got some Clemson ties as well. If you go into the Clemson Rolodex, because if you look at it, the Oklahoma staff is made up of basically three different types of guys. Guys that worked with Brent at Clemson, guys that either already existed at OU or had OU ties, and then you have Emmett Jones and Jay Valai. That's like the three groups of guys. So if you're looking at of the Clemson lane, Willie Korn at Liberty, Craddock at Tulane, and maybe if you get Craddock, you get Darian Mensah, you have a quarterback as well. That's something that worked out really, really well for Vanderbilt, obviously, is when they hired Beck and then they brought Pavea in. You had the OC QB combo that kind of recreating what you got with Levy and Gabriel.
Yeah, that's the part of this ever shifting matrix that I think head coaches are very leery of. Or maybe it's like trying to read the future. You just can't read the future. You can guess, but you can't really read the future. So you get an offensive coordinator and you ask him, okay, so what do you think about offense? This is the kind of offense I like to run. Okay, well, you know any quarterbacks that can run that kind of offense? Actually, we have a guy that I've been working with the past 2 years, plus a guy that's over here now that I recruited out of high school. How does the new quarterback, and then the quarterback's got to make a decision, right? So that's it's just so complex with with the way the transfer portal works. 5 years ago, just 5 short years ago, this was not something that was in play when you hired somebody. So pretty
Totally
crazy.
crazy. Totally crazy. Hey, two more names just for extra credit. Pro style stuff. We haven't seen a ton of that in Norman. If you're just simply, and this is like the most boring, dumb thing that I can do, but I did it. If you're just sifting by like, look at top teams in total offense, separate out the teams where we know that the head coach is running the offense like a Lincoln Riley USC type thing. If you want to go pro set or more of a pro set, Jeff Nixon's doing a great job at Syracuse right now. He is obviously, he might be best known for his stint as Matt Rule's OC from 17 to 19, pretty good Baylor offenses. He's taken that to another level at Syracuse with Kyle McCord there in his first year, taking an offense that was in the 90s into a top 15 offense in 1 year. Kyle McCord came in, helped that out a great deal as well. Going the other direction, Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech. You would need to bring a quarterback coach in with him, but he's done a really, really good job with Brent Key's offense. The development of Haynes King has been really, really good the last 2 years, even though Haynes not going to play this weekend and didn't play last weekend, I don't believe. But that Georgia Tech offense also up there as far as efficiency, total offense, all that stuff. A group that's 4 or 5 years removed away from, or really just 2.5 years. Jeff Collins was bad. The offense was bad. Buster Faulkner's turned that around really quickly in Atlanta.
I I know Brent said at his press conference yesterday, we're not going to run the triple option, but I suggest you back up the Brinks truck and get Jeff Monken in here, head coach at Army, and say, bro, whatever you want. Because for a good 3 or 4 years, you would have the SEC going, oh my God, we got to play Oklahoma this week. We got to play Oklahoma this week. What? Jeez, I hate that offense. You know, it gets you out of defending the air raid and the spread and all the pro style. And all of a sudden you got to defend that damn Army power eye triple option, whatever they're doing. It's so good. I love watching Army play. It's so frustrating. Ask Mike Stoops.
It'd be
Ask
fun.
Mike Stoops how frustrating it is to have to defend the Army Black Knights. I
It'd be
say that
fun.
I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but maybe just a sliver of seriousness.
It would be fun. I don't know how realistic it'd be at Oklahoma, but it'd be fun. It would be. Hey, Georgia Tech played a couple of Orange Bowls, and they don't have near the athletes, but I don't think you're going to get the quarterback recruiting that Oklahoma fans are used to if you're running the triple option.
Well,
So
it's like me and Trevor were talking about this, and he said they would have the best option quarterback in the country every year coming to Oklahoma.
sure, you're right. You're right. You're right. It would be fun. I don't think anyone's considering that, but hey, why not? So there's your name fiesta, your name salad. We'll keep monitoring. That's really going to heat up at the end of November. Oklahoma's last regular season game, November 30th. The portal window opens that next week. So that's when everything's going to actually happen. But Brent Venables said it on Tuesday that there's not a lot you can do mid-season, but that doesn't mean they're doing nothing. They're going to walk and chew gum at the same time. I imagine that involves feeling out agents informally of just like, if we were to call once the season's done, would he take an interview, all that stuff. So we will see what that looks like. Hey,
signing day at the same time too.
Yeah.
Signing day. You got to bring in those guys. You got Michael Fasusi, a 5-star. You got Ryan Foji, a 4-star offensive lineman. You got to bring those guys in. Probably. What do you think, time wise, before you make a decision on the offensive coordinator?
I think your OC, let me pull up the calendar real quick. Your OC search probably needs to be done. I think you got to have someone named by like December 4th or 5th.
You would like to. I agree. You would like to, but what if the guy you hire doesn't ring the bell for those 4- and 5-star recruits? What if you've got guys saying, "Yeah, that's the guy I don't want to play for. I'm going to go to Texas."
Here's the thing: to save Brent Venables' job, they gotta get a guy that can come in and do this thing. And I don't think that means that you can be beholden to, like, maybe in the dream world you end up that he brings in a whole new staff but loves Bill Bedenbaugh, so Bill Bedenbaugh stays, something like that. It's like for instance, if TCU really bottomed out, I don't think this is going to happen, and Sonny Dykes became available, and you want to go like that direction. Sonny Dykes is like best friends with Bill Bedenbaugh, I believe. So like that would be something where you're not as worried about it because the skill positions are the skill positions. You're supposed to get all these wide receivers back. You're going to go get a quarterback. Those linemen be like, oh yeah, you're still, it's Bill Bedenbaugh. Sick. Awesome. Whatever. But at the end of the day, like Bill Bedenbaugh's offensive lines have been not Bill Bedenbaugh offensive lines since 2020. They've been good, not elite in 21 and 22 and 23, varying levels of all that stuff. What are you really losing? I mean, you get the 5 stars and they don't develop, because who has developed on that offensive line? The transfers. That's who's developed the last 2 or 3 years. What's the last in-house success story of Bill Bedenbaugh? Creed?
Yeah, Creed.
We're talking. We still go back to 2018 to hold up Bill Bedenbaugh. That 2018 was a long time ago. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you're going into 2025. I mean, it's been 7-8 years, so we shall see. Hey, let's take a quick timeout. On the other side, we're gonna link up with John Macon Gillespie from Ole Miss Rebels on SI, previewing the Rebs, everything that they've got, and then we'll close out the show talking about Jackson Arnold, what can change, all that stuff here as we carry on here on the Sooners on SI podcast. Welcome back in. Time to preview the Rebels. And to do that, we have the great John Macon Gillespie. Does a great job over Ole Miss Rebels on SI. John, welcome in. How are things going in Oxford and around Ole Miss country?
Well, I would say that the weather's pretty nice, but I know that's not what you're asking. Yeah, I think that the mood has soured a little bit in Oxford, for sure. I think that the brakes have been pumped a little bit after a couple of difficult to stomach losses to Kentucky and LSU. But those losses came by a combined score of 6 points. I still think this team is really good if the locker room can handle that adversity. But as far as the fan base is concerned, I think that they're really itching to get back in the win column on Saturday for sure.
Well, they got the perfect team coming to town if they want that. We'll get to that here in a second. Real quick, just like 10,000 foot view, I think that a lot of people this year were really interested in Ole Miss, really interested in Missouri, two of the SEC teams that were very, very active in taking kind of an NFL model of bringing back a ton of starters and then dropping a bunch of NIL, publicly, big time transfers that were paid out a ton. How is that holding together? Because I think everyone, if it's rocking and rolling, it'll be great. If you hit a little rut like this, people worry, does things fracture? What does that culture kind of feel like, at least from the outside looking in, of what Lane Kiffin everybody's doing right now?
Well, I think from the outside looking in, it looks like it's holding up okay. Now, that's coming from media availabilities where certain players have been asked almost point blank that question, like, hey, how, especially the transfers, how are they kind of staying together during this little bump in the road or bumps in the road? The returns on that have been positive. That doesn't always mean that things are all positive in the locker room, because when you have a lot of transfers, a lot of new faces mixing with returners, I mean, you've got people that are trying to adapt to a new place, a new system, and a new culture all at the same time, kind of. So I do think that's definitely an interesting variable. That's something I'm interested to see in the weeks ahead, because how they responded to the overtime loss to LSU and then having a bye week to kind of let it marinate and try to get over it a little bit. How they respond to that in the weeks ahead, I think, is going to be really big, because yes, they still technically have a shot to get into the playoff if they win out. Um, but the likelihood of that is not super high. I'm not saying they won't do it, but how they respond and kind of attack this scenario, I think, is really going to be key.
John, before we dive into the game and the team and the matchups and the quarterbacks and all that stuff, tell us about the experience of covering Lane Kiffin on a beat basis or as a columnist or whatever exposures that you and your staff have had to him, because he seems like a wildly interesting guy. He puts post game press conferences on hold so he can watch the end of the Alabama game. I mean, he's just going through life with such a unique, maybe perspective that it seems like it might be kind of fun sometimes to cover him.
Man, it really is. I'm not going to lie to you. It is. You wouldn't get it based on his social media presence, but he doesn't really like being around groups of people. That's not his jam, really. He's much more of a one-on-one person, if anything. Which usually with local guys like us, he doesn't do a lot of one-on-one stuff. It's usually with national guys that he does. But yeah, it is really fun to cover him because there's always something going on
Yeah.
with him, whether it's in season, out of season, some storyline with Lane Kiffin that needs to be talked about. Uh, for context, when I was a student at Ole Miss, I covered the Matt Luke era, coming off of the heels of an NCAA investigation and all that kind of stuff. It's a night and day difference as far as personalities are concerned there. And Matt Luke's a great guy for sure, but really enjoyed covering Matt. But um, Lane's a different animal for sure. He's really interesting to cover, and you never really know what he's going to say. You can ask some big picture questions in some of these weekly media availabilities that we have, and he's sometimes more prone to answer those thoughtfully than hey, what do you think about the Sooners offense this week? That kind of thing. So he really is a lot of fun to cover. I think the way he approaches coaching and with his personality, when he's winning at Ole Miss, the fans eat it up. I mean, they're eating out of the palm of his hand pretty much. But when there's a couple bumps in the road, sometimes things get a little hectic with the fan base because they feel like maybe it should be a little more serious. But you get that when you have Lane Kiffin, and so far it's worked in Oxford.
You saw that a little bit this week with sounded like you guys were trying to ask him about Joe John Finley a little bit, and Lane's just like, he was a tight end coach. I don't know anything about Joe John's offensive philosophy, which I appreciated. So it was funny. Kind of a weird, I don't know if it's not like parallels, almost a sliding door moment. When Oklahoma was in the portal a couple years ago for a quarterback, they ultimately landed Dylan Gabriel. Jackson Dart was the other guy that the Sooners were kind of going after in case Gabriel didn't come through, and they're trying to replace Caleb Williams. Where's Jackson Dart at as he's halfway through year 3 with Lane and obviously very, very productive, explosive offense. How's he done kind of leading that unit in his 3rd year for the Rebs?
Well, I think he's really blossomed into a phenomenal leader and a really good football player. And I kind of have that perspective because, I mean, we cover him every week. We've seen his maturation from when he stepped foot on campus to now. And it's been really impressive. I mean, he's always presented himself really professionally. but on the field and in the locker room, I mean, it seems like guys have really united behind him just from the perspectives that we see. Uh, I will say that since he is so bought in, he has taken these two losses really hard. It's been difficult for him to swallow because I mean he's put so much into it, and you can kind of see that in his expressions after those losses. Like I know after Kentucky, I asked him specifically. I said, you know, Jackson, what do you say to the locker room after a game like this that you kind of let get away? And he kind of grunted and said, well, there's not really much to say. And that was the end of the quote. And so like you could tell it hurt him. But I think that has helped kind of unite the roster behind him a little bit because they see that he cares. They see that he's willing to put his body on the line and take some hits for him. Um, so and as a quarterback, I mean, his decision making has gotten a ton better too from where he was in year one. So I think he's grown a lot. I don't know what his professional future may hold, but I think if an NFL team did take a chance on him, I think he would be a really, really good locker room presence.
John, let's switch gears to the defense. This Ole Miss defense, it's funny. Oklahoma's playing in first year now, obviously, in the SEC. Tennessee's got the best defensive line in the country. South Carolina's got the best defensive line in the country. Ole Miss has got the best defensive line in the country. We've heard that 3 of the last 4 weeks. Oh, I forgot about Texas. Texas has got one of the best defensive lines in the country. That's life in the Southeastern Conference. But in terms of for Ole Miss, some of these guys, some of these names, Oklahoma with an offensive line that's patchwork and makeshift and whatever other euphemisms you want to use for it, they've got their hands full with guys like Jared Ivey and Princely. Help me with the last name. I've never been able to pronounce this.
Uman Mielen.
Uman Mielen. Beautiful. Walter Nolan, obviously former number 1 overall player in the country coming out of high school before we went to Texas A&M. They've got dudes on dudes on dudes on that defensive line.
Yeah, they really do. And in my 7 or 8 years, I guess, covering Ole Miss, this is the first time this defensive line has been like this. They've always had some guys, like they've had a piece or two here or there, but the depth and the defensive line as a whole has never been this talented. It may not have been this talented in school history. This unit is really, really good. They get after the passer. I think they're allowing an average of 2 yards per carry. I think right on the dot this year. The run defense has been superb to this point, and you know it was just a few short years ago, even in Lane Kiffin's early years in Oxford, that the defense was an issue. I mean, a real issue. It cost them games. If the offense didn't score every possession, they weren't going to win the game. So the way they've been able to turn that thing around with the transfer portal and some recruiting, I think Pete Golding as defensive coordinator has done a really good job bringing some of those guys in, and all of those names that you mentioned, they're top notch athletes, and this looks like an SEC defensive line now. It hasn't always in the past, but now I mean from top to bottom, it looks like they can compete week in and week out in the SEC, and I mean they've kind of proven that so far.
Yeah, just real quick, another little added context. Ole Miss run defense number 1 in the country, 66 yards per game. Good luck running the football. OU averages 2.1 yards per carry? 3.1 yards per carry. That's not a good matchup for OU. Sorry, Ryan.
No, I've stopped tracking it. That Ole Miss's numbers are somehow going to get better this weekend against Oklahoma's run. That's neither here nor there. What is Pete Golding? Another name that weird that there's just a lot of crossroads. He was a name thrown around back when he was at Alabama when Lincoln Riley was hiring Alex Grinch. That was kind of the whole storyline in the 2018 matchup between Oklahoma and Bama. What as he stepped out of Alabama, what's kind of his defensive philosophy, how he has this group rolling? Because we've seen the last 2 weeks on the Oklahoma side of things, Texas, South Carolina, both very aggressive, sending pressure, and there's been basically nothing Oklahoma can do. Are they in for another big dose of Pete Golden just saying, pin your ears back, boys, and get after Jackson Arnold, basically?
I really think on the edge, yes. I think that Suntaran Perkins and Princely Monmielen will be sent a lot for sure. But as far as his philosophy goes, I kind of put it in terms of he is a football guy. There are people who coach football who are not football guys, so to speak. I mean, eat, sleep, breathe the sport. Um, we only get access to coordinators in a media setting once a year, and it's during fall camp. whenever we get Pete Golding, I mean, there is so much like technical mumbo jumbo thrown into his quotes that like the average fan is not going to understand. He is very technical in the way he calls defenses. Um, yeah, and I think Ole Miss has really benefited from that. And he, according to the players and what we've seen in those rare media availabilities, his personality is great. I think that's one reason he's been able to attract so many players out of the portal is that he's kind of an energetic guy. I think that registers really well with these kids. Um, but two, I mean, his coaching speaks for itself. I mean, he is very technical, and he's not afraid to scheme up some stuff too. Week to week. I mean, it's very impressive what he's been able to do, and his Twitter presence is not as hectic as Lane Kiffin's. The only thing he really ever tweets is a shark emoji when there's a commitment coming. I think that's like his last 30 or 40 tweets maybe has just been a single shark emoji. So he's not as chronically online as Lane is, but still he's a pretty fun guy to be around, and I think he's done a really good job with his defense.
He sounds a lot like Brent Venables. Him and Venables need to get together and talk some defense and stay off social media together.
Yeah.
Let's when we talked to Lane Kiffin down in Arlington or down in Dallas rather at the SEC Media Days. One of the things that jumped out from that conversation, from those conversations, was Ole Miss is a team that has a ton of experience back, has a bunch of players back from last year, best year in school history, 11-2, best year that they've ever had, first 11-win season, all that stuff. But then you throw in the number of portal guys into that mix, and Lane's concern, his only concern at that time, and he said it was going great, they had a good spring, but it sounded like his only concern at that time was being able to blend all that returning experience with all that newcomer kind of vibe coming in from the transfer portal. How has that been to this point, do you think, John?
I mean, from my perspective, I think it's gone well. Obviously, the two losses kind of throw a shade of doubt on that, maybe. But as far as camaraderie goes and like the intangible aspect of a locker room, I mean, I think that from all accounts, from inside and outside of the Manning Center, the football facility, the the locker room vibe has not really been an issue so far this year, even with a couple of losses. And I think that's really what Lane was getting at, was that the not just the meshing and understanding of the systems and everything, but meshing with one another almost, because I think that's kind of an overlooked aspect of the game sometimes. When you have so many different guys coming from so many different programs across the country, joining some guys who were here last year, that can always be an issue. But from all accounts and from everything I've seen, it seemed like it's gone well, which would make 2 years in a row that it's gone well. I'm not sure that it went great in 2022 when Ole Miss faced some adversity after a loss to Alabama, and everything kind of spiraled, down towards the end. But that's why I'm so interested in these next few weeks, because how Ole Miss responds to being punched in the mouth is going to determine how the rest of the season goes. And a lot of that has to do with locker room culture. And so I think we'll learn more about that in the weeks ahead.
Last little football nugget here before we get on to the Oxford experience for any Oklahoma fans making their way. We haven't really talked a ton the last couple of weeks about Oklahoma's defense and the weapons that they're going to face offensively, because frankly, if the other team scores 10 points, the game's like over. But Trey Harris is like unbelievable. What is Oklahoma's secondary going to be up against here as one of the, not just Jackson Dart's favorite weapons, but one of the best pass catchers in the entire conference in the country?
Yeah, he's the word I use to describe him is shifty. I think that's the most apt description I can come up with. He's not always the fastest wide receiver in the country, and he's not necessarily going to break every tackle that comes his way, but he's shifty. He can make guys miss in space. He's got really good hands. And one of the biggest parts of this is that Jackson Dart trusts him probably with his life. Like, I mean, it's kind of spooky, the chemistry that they have since Trey Harris got on campus last year. Um, he is the best wide receiver on the field when Ole Miss is out there, and his health has been a little bit of a concern. The last couple of games against South Carolina and LSU, he's departed early with a lower body injury, two separate lower body injuries actually. So I'm kind of curious to see what he looks like this weekend, if he's able to go, that kind of thing. but yeah, when he's on the field, he's special. And I mean, he's already pushing 1,000 yards this year, I believe, and he almost broke 1,000 yards last year too. So yeah, I mean, number 9 is definitely somebody who Oklahoma fans need to keep an eye on Saturday.
All right, John, let's talk about the many, 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 many great things to do down in Oxford, Mississippi. We're going to be driving in Friday. I think we're staying in Olive Branch up near Memphis. But for the folks who are in town, the folks who are in Oxford, we all know about the Grove, or we've heard about the Grove. Just kind of give us a feel of what folks maybe need to do, maybe your favorite place to grab a bite on a Friday night, or even maybe a Saturday morning before kickoff, or a coffee, or something like that.
Yeah, I think, and I'm a big food guy. Like I've put on a lot of weight since I went to school at Ole Miss because of the places to eat up there. So my favorite place is Ajax. It's on the square. It's a soul food place. Really, really southern cooking, which I mean is what I was raised on in North Mississippi. But um, they have a vegetable plate thing where you get 3 vegetables for like $9 or something like that. I don't remember
Nice.
what it is, but macaroni and cheese is one of the vegetables listed on there, which tells you you're in Mississippi because that's not a vegetable. Um, so, but that's my favorite place to eat for sure. I mean, you can't go wrong with any menu item there. The vibes are incredible. I mean, they've got music playing that's like the Doobie Brothers and a lot of old Southern rock like that. Uh, that's my go-to place. The crowds will be pretty hectic this weekend with an SEC team coming to town, and I figure Oklahoma's probably going to travel pretty well too, so that's going to impact things. But Ajax is my go-to place for that. For breakfast on Saturdays, Big Bad Breakfast on North Lamar. It's kind of a small place, but it's another place that will kind of clog your arteries a little bit. Their biscuits and gravy are phenomenal. Uh,
Sounds
so I
good.
mean, if you're looking for some really southern cooking where stuff is fried to the max, I mean, Oxford's got you covered. They've got some really really great spots.
I
Hey,
was
we're
in,
supposed to enjoy Saturdays. We enjoy them, not no, we
yeah.
don't diet on Saturdays around these
Yeah,
parts.
we're gonna have heavy eyelids if we eat one of those big old breakfasts trying to get through that game, because especially the way Oklahoma's been playing, they might just put us to sleep, Ryan. I was in Oxford I used to cover the Hogs in '97 and '98, and I was there in '97 when John Avery went 97 yards for a touchdown. It's pretty amazing night. Somebody threatened to beat me and 4 other Arkansas sports writers up in the press box. So we're hoping that guy's not there anymore. But man, we're looking forward to the trip.
Yeah, well, we look forward to having you guys. It should be a really fun weekend. I'm personally looking forward to it because this is a team I've never covered in person before coming to town. Right? I mean, Oklahoma is one of the biggest brands in college football, and whenever that's one thing that I love so much about the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas is that we get those cool road trips to places that some fans have maybe never been. Even though John, you've been to Oxford, I mean, a lot of Oklahoma fans probably have not. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the cultural meshing that comes together this weekend. It should be a lot of fun, regardless of how the football is on the field.
Yeah, can't wait.
Well, we're gonna coast on the vibes because this thing might be over pretty soon after it's kicked off, but that's okay. That's okay. I think Oklahoma fans have gotten used to that the last couple of weeks, so maybe that's not going to harsh their experience too much.
You have to soak in these SEC experiences when you go on the road like this. I mean,
Yep.
regardless of how good or bad your team is, I mean, these are once in a lifetime experiences for some fans. You really have to soak it in.
Yep. Wise words. Good
Should
stuff.
be good. Should be good. That's John Macon. Gillespie does a great job. Ole Miss Rebels on SI is where you can find all of that. If you want to do some reading up on everything Ole Miss has got going on this weekend. John, thanks again. We'll see you this weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Look forward to it.
See you, man.
Big thank you to other John, Ole Miss John. What we got 918 Hoof, we got John Macon Gillespie, all that stuff. Be sure you check them out. We're super appreciative. And check us out on the website, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. You never need anything except an internet connection to get to us. All of our content free. We got all the videos in the world. Just look for those watch files. Hit the football tab for all of those. We put them all in one big file or all out. All of our stories. Or if you're looking for the video content, you can head to the YouTube page. John, Hoover Media. That's where you might be watching us here. And if you're listening, give us a 5-star rating, review. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, comment. Who do you want to be the OC? Hoover and I have, we took 20 minutes. We gave it a big bro hug. We figured it out. We will be able to move forward as a website, despite our disagreements on the Marion offense. It will be okay.
I just
That's for the
worry,
future.
Ryan. I just worry for you because when Brennan Marion gets hired, he's going to go back and watch all these, and he's going to go. That guy is on my list.
That'll be great, and I'll be on his list when they're all unemployed this time in 2025.
Wow.
Look, man,
Captain Negativity.
We've talked about this behind the scenes. I am not confident in the direction of the Oklahoma football program, and that is regardless of this hire that happens at OC. Well, like I said, we'll wait for them to lose a couple more games before I really start bringing out the should you pay the $44 million today, right now. We shall see. That doesn't matter, though. Why, Hoove? Because Oklahoma has to still play these football games. Football is still a random sport, and that's what we're going to do on Saturday. All right, Jackson Arnold's going to be your quarterback yet again. Monday night, Brent Venables rolled that out there. So Jackson Arnold playing free. Again, if you've missed it, if you didn't watch the post-game podcast or listen to it because you were so angry, I totally get it. That's how my family is when it comes to stuff like that. But I would encourage you, head over to the YouTube page, OklahomaSooners.com, whatever you want to do. Go watch Jackson Arnold after the game. I thought he was super insightful on Saturday night about playing free, and that's what this offense is going to have to do. Who we talked to Troy Everett, we talked to Jake Roberts, Brennan Thompson, Jacob Jordan, Javante Barnes, all on the offensive side of things. Also talked to Daniel Stutzman and Robert Spears Jennings on the defense. Kind of a through line for those guys is playing free, playing with some pride. To a certain extent, Hoove, they got a coach fired. It can't get much worse on the result point of view. So I do wonder if this weekend, though it's not going to schematically look totally different, if maybe these guys just say, we're just going to try and play free and loose and have fun because the season kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I saw a tweet earlier in the week, I think it was Monday, from Gabe Eichert, who said, take it from me, from experience, it is no fun to be on a team that gets your coach fired. Paraphrasing there best I can, but yeah, I would think that would suck as a player, and that, you build these relationships, in this particular case with Seth Littrell, for 10 months, 11 months since he's been here, probably going back to when he was an analyst last year, so he's been here going on 2 years. And, you playing with his kids, you're having dinner at his house with his family, right? You get to like his family and his mom and his wife and his dad. And you know what I mean? It's just it becomes this personal relationship thing. And all of a sudden, you're losing sucks. You're not supposed to lose when you're at a place like Oklahoma, but then your coach gets fired and you're sitting there going, oh my God. That has to be just a sock in the chin for some of these guys. And, poor Jake Roberts, he's been on the team where Seth Littrell has been fired twice now, at North Texas and at Oklahoma. So I would think that's just a tough turnaround. But you come to Oklahoma, you get your scholarship, you sign your NIL, and you go into, or your NLI, and you go in and get your NIL, and you become an OU football player. And when you do that, these are the things you sign up for. These are the risk you run, right? The great reward. With great power comes great responsibility. There's great reward where there's great risk. And in the case of an OU football player, this is one of the things you sign up for. So yeah, and he's probably not going to be the last one to be fired for these guys.
No. And it'll be, I actually asked Jake Roberts that on Tuesday of there's been so much talk about from play to play. It's one thing here and one thing there. And it's felt like you guys have been so focused in on being perfect and eliminating that stuff. Is there a sense that, much like Jackson, who had said, I just wanted to play free and have fun and try to play without all that pressure? I wonder if Oklahoma's offense can find a little bit of that, because Jake did say, as a veteran guy, he's tried to not have that, but he could definitely see where for some of the young guys, there'd be all that pressure, especially for young wide receivers who mentally, they probably didn't think they were going to be playing this key of a role in the offense coming into the year with all the injuries. I'm not expecting Deion Burks to be back. I know he looked good on Saturday up until he couldn't play. I think there may have been maybe a re-aggravation in practice. We'll see, though. We'll be monitoring the availability report all the way through. I think it's going to be the same grouping that we saw for a lot of the time. Hopefully, maybe with another day on, that feels better, that prognosis is better. But when you look at it, John, I don't think that you're suddenly going to see a bunch of different stuff. It's not going to go back to being a super RPO heavy attack or anything like that. So it just becomes the number one thing. With Jackson Arnold, we saw he was willing to push the ball down the field a lot more all throughout the second quarter and the second half against South Carolina. There were a couple of moments where it looked great, the Brennan Thompson touchdown, a couple of moments where you're frustrated. He's able to, get a pass out to Bauer Sharp and it hits him in the hand. And then that led to the fake punt that was an abomination and all that stuff. But for the most part, this Ole Miss defensive line is really talented. And I fear that the offensive line is in such a state that regardless of who's calling it and all that stuff, that the result is going to look very, very similar on Saturday in Oxford.
Well, if the quarterback can come out and say sometimes the expectations at a place like Oklahoma can be sometimes unrealistic. And if the quarterback can say it felt good to be able to come out and play free, which is, I think, what you saw in the fourth quarter by Michael Hawkins against Tennessee, playing free. And I think you saw it on that scramble at Auburn where Mike Hawkins takes off and just was like, sees the defense part and says, that's me. I got to go. And he throws that deep ball to J.J. Hester because he got a little protection and he's playing free. Can the offensive line do that too? Can the offensive line just go out and say, okay, forget about this slide protection. Forget about who's the mic. They're looking and they're trying to find. Forget about whether this defensive end is hedging or crashing. Forget all that. I'm just going to go out and the guy standing in front of me, I'm going to stay low. I'm going to get my pad level low. I'm going to get my hands on him and I'm going to knock the hell out of him. Can the offensive line not do that? You know what I mean? I simplify things to the point where it's just gladiators playing football again. Stop trying to outthink your opponent. Maybe that's a Joe John thing. When Joe John gets the headset on and he starts calling plays, maybe Bill Bedenbaugh pairs things back and says, you know what, guys? We got nothing to lose except every game the rest of the season. Let's go out and just play free. I don't know. I'm sure it's more complex than that. I know football is a very complicated game, but we've heard what was the saying? You've referenced it before. It doesn't have to, football is a simple game made complicated by coaches.
Yeah, it's a Kelly Greggism. A great Kelly Gregg.
Yes.
He'll throw that out once a week around Franchise Studios. Football is a simple game made complicated by coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see part of like the disaster of Saturday is when you're that far behind. It's similar when we flip it around and talk about when R. Mason Thomas has been able to take things over versus when he's just been chipping away. When you get in obvious passing situations, things get a lot more simple for the defense. They pin their ears back. That's when R. Mason Thomas has 4.5 sacks in 2 quarters. For South Carolina, it became so easy on Saturday because they're like, okay, what are they going to do? Throw a screen at us so they pop up a 15-yard run? They still have to put 24 unanswered points on the board, that kind of thing. If you don't turn the ball over early, we've seen them have a little bit of success run to the outside. Maybe that's more Joe John's flavor. Maybe you're able to, if you have a good couple of run plays, if you can throw a screen, then suddenly you're making the defensive ends think, okay, maybe I'm a half step slower because I'm having to process something instead of just knowing I'm rushing the passer. I don't think anyone's pretending that Oklahoma's offense is going to score 40, but that's how you start to have just a lot better footing for the rest of that game plan. Then you flip it over. Texas in the second half, what did they do? They turtled on the ball a little bit because they knew just don't give Oklahoma any hope to get back into this thing. The offense can't dig out of this hole. South Carolina did the same thing. I don't think Lane Kiffin's interested in any of that. I think Lane Kiffin's out for blood all the time. Now, is this a very talented offense with Trey, with Jackson Dart and all that? Sure. But Oklahoma's defense hasn't really had a chance to force a turnover in the last 6 quarters because the game's been over.
Yeah.
Lane, I think, is going to give them a chance to force some turnovers and try and work their way back in it. Is it a talented offense? Absolutely. But I think all those things are a lot more on the table with Lane calling the plays than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. But you can't dig a 21-point hole early. Like that, none of that matters if you get down that big.
Yeah. I'll take my previous point one step further. When you hear old coaches talk about who wins the matchup, who wins the game, do you hear them say, well, the team that doesn't take the false step is the team that wins the game? The team that diagnoses who the Mike linebacker is on any given play is the team that wins the game. The team that slide protects properly against a four-man front, when that four-man front is slanting into the linebacker, that's the team that. No, the team that wins the game is the team that plays the most physical. The team that wins the game is the team that gets their butt down in the dirt and blocks somebody and hits somebody and tackles somebody. Oklahoma's offense, particularly the line and those tight ends, they choose, up to the first 7 games, they have chosen to not play physical football, to not play, brawny chested, slug it out, bloody nose, slobber knocker football. It's amazing, dude. I'm not kidding. You know me, I sit there in the press box and I got my binoculars and I'm looking through the binoculars and I'll zoom in a lot on the offensive line. And you see a lot of offensive line play where they snap the ball and they get out of their stance and they throw their chest back, and here comes the defensive lineman and back they go. And they just get blown off the ball. And it happens so frequently. It happens almost on every play. At what point do they bend their back and get their face mask into somebody's chest and drive them in the other direction? I haven't seen that out of Oklahoma's offensive line this year. I thought that was a Bill Bedenbaugh kind of a tenet of his coaching. So, as I said before, I keep referencing Brent Venables. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And you're either coaching them to be soft or you're allowing them to be soft. So that goes back to the mismatch that we talked about in the second segment with John Macon. It's a mismatch on the South Carolina, sure. The Ole Miss defensive line against the Oklahoma offensive line. Does it have to be a mismatch? Do those guys have to play like that? Do those guys choose to play like that? Ask yourself that question.
Unfortunately, I think this week this year, we haven't seen Oklahoma move Temple. They didn't move Houston. They didn't move Tulane. The warning signs were there for what this could be. And I just, frankly, the only close game Oklahoma's played in the SEC has been against another one of the teams that we're sifting through to decide, is Oklahoma, Auburn, or Mississippi State the worst team in the SEC? That's the only team that Oklahoma's played a close game against.
I think being physical is a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw a different version of that with Jacob Jordan, not the physicality, but
exactly.
There are so many of these freshman wide receivers that have been thrust into roles. Brent Venables talked about, if it's a 10-yard route, it's going to be a 10-yard route. Can't be 16-yard depth, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jacob Jordan goes out there and he runs his routes with aggressiveness. He attacks it in the way that a wide receiver attacks, with precision, aggressive. He played free, and you saw it. So,
and he's a walk-on. He's not a 4-star superstar.
Yeah.
NIL baby. He's a walk-on who says, Coach, just let me play. I'll show you how hard I can play. And that's what it's all about. That's what football's all about, is how hard can you play? Can you play harder than that guy in front of you? Can you win your matchup more than he wins his matchup? And when we're talking about the Oklahoma offensive line, we see them lose their matchup way too often.
Yeah, for sure. How many times have we seen snap, one, okay, plays over? Like there's 4 guys in the backfield. It's too often. Brent Venables was asked on Wednesday's teleconference about young guys like Eddie Pierre-Louis, Eugene Brooks. He said that they've been going back and forth on whether to redshirt an Eddie Pierre-Louis or not. I think that regardless of that, this is like the worst possible situation to throw those guys in. You talk about baptism by fire. You've got a Maine team next week, a Missouri front that has had some injuries and does not look as treacherous. Then from there, against Alabama and LSU, if you need to make the decision of, do we sit one of these guys out, redshirt them, all that stuff. I am all for, I would love to see Eddie Pierre-Louis play 4 games this year, but even I am like, I don't know if Saturday is the moment to throw him in, unless it's maybe the third.
I agree. And here's the thing, man. You've got guys who have started at Florida, guys who have started at USC, guys who have started at Michigan State. As I recall, they were all scholarship players. As I recall, they were all wanted out of high school because they were good high school football players, good enough to go out and get Division I FBS Power 5 scholarships. You come to Oklahoma and you can't play football anymore? What am I missing? What am I missing? Why are those guys suddenly not good football players? Doesn't make any sense.
Big misses by Bill Bedenbaugh, which is why it makes.
I agree. They're not great players, but they're better than what they're playing. They've got to be better than what they're playing.
Well, sorry, to miss, you have to first off not land your Lance Herds of the world, and then you don't develop the guys that you do have. This group was playing marginally better all the way up to the Auburn game. And then it's felt like as they've had more guys available, they've taken a step back against Texas and then another step back. It's because we came out of the Auburn game, like it wasn't great, but that was their best protection game. You know what I mean? And that has gone backwards. So we'll see. On to other things real quick. Brent Venables did give maybe the most extensive wide receiver update he's given all year long. Here we'll play the hits. Nick Anderson had a tear in his thigh.
Significant tear.
That typically Brent Venables said if you Google it, the grade 1, it takes 3 months. He confirmed that Jaden Gibson's was a patellar tendon. On Tuesday, he also said that Jaden Gibson is ahead of schedule as far as the flexibility measurements. But that patellar tendon, any Thunder fan, that's the Andre Robertson injury, right? It takes a while to get that explosion back. So that's well into next year type thing. Jalil Farouk is on schedule with his foot recovery. I know he gave the 6 to 10 weeks when it 6 to 8 weeks, when it happened. But I think the Missouri game is always the most comfortable one, especially for a guy like Jalil Farouk. If he plays Missouri, Alabama, LSU, he can redshirt. So that was that injury update. Andrew Anthony is still working to get back. He had another cleanup, Brent Venables said, or a couple during the season.
Collateral damage, he called it.
Because, he said that he's just a guy that scars a bit more. So whether he's back this year or next year, Brent Venables also said for all these guys that they have indicated to him, he didn't ask them, that they all want to be on the field. No one's holding out, trying to maintain eligibility to transfer. And that he's indicated they've all said they want to come back and be a part of this team next year. Does the coaching changes change that? I don't know. Who else are we missing? Deion Burks is day-to-day. Did we hit everybody?
Here's the deal with Deion Burks' soft tissue injury. We saw him fall on a football and a guy's helmet. Okay, we don't know the extent of the soft tissue injury. And when I say we don't know the extent of it, is it like a deep bruise in your upper abdomen muscle and you can't straighten up? Or has he got a lacerated kidney? Right? That's what those two things are, both soft tissue injuries. And it's like, I thought he was okay. I thought he was healthy. He's apparently has been unable to play for the last 4 weeks. So it's got to be frustrating for those guys. And like Venables said, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not being evasive. I want them in here, but they're just not able to play.
Yeah. So we shall see on all of that. 11 a.m. Saturday, ESPN, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss. We will be there, boots on the ground in Oxford. I want chicken on a stick. That, simply put, give me the chicken on a stick. Give me the Grove. Even for 11 a.m., we will see that as well. All right, real quick, before we dip, Men's Basketball Media Day was on Wednesday, John. I know you're fired up. We got to meet most of the 10 newcomers as well as Oklahoma's returners. Got to talk with Porter Moser a week after the SEC tip-off out in Birmingham. They're going to play slightly different this year, Hoove, because of the portal situation. They went more 3-and-D guys, got some different kind of shooters. So we'll see that. They want to play shooting and in space. They told us they were going to play more up-tempo last year. They were correct. They did play a little bit more up-tempo. So subtle shifts, and Porter Moser said it's a subtle shift, all that stuff. He also, once again, 3 different times referenced them missing the tournament. I understand that is the thing that's fueling them. I'm over it. Like, you missed the tournament. It's done. Porter Moser called it the hardest day of his professional life was that selection Sunday, all that stuff.
Don't blame Joe Lunardi if you don't make the tournament.
Yeah, win a Big 12 tournament game. Like, sorry, we've hashed this. We're not going to hash it over and over and over. Things that I'm really excited for. Jeremiah Fears, the 4-star combo guard, reclassified to come on in. EBYL sensation, and Porter even referenced like the EBYL numbers. Those translate year over year. 6'4", so he's got the size. He should be able to hang with the physicality of the SEC. The big question that I was going to have is, we know with Porter, if If you don't know the defensive sets, you're not going to play basketball, no matter how frustrating it is. But Porter was really encouraged by all the work that Fears is putting in to learn the defense. I talked to Sam Godwin about it. I talked to a couple of those guys, Jadon Jordan about it. Their kind of defensive specialist, the guy from Long Beach State who made 77 threes last year, all that stuff. Sounds like that Fears is going to be a guy that they're just going to give the keys to and let him go. So that's exciting, along with Jalen Moore being back, Sam Godwin being back. It sounds like it's going to be a group that they're going to play 8 to 10 guys and maybe not be so reliant on the fact that they had the injury kind of tsunami at the end of the year last year that really nuked any kind of their momentum heading into the Big 12 tournament.
Do you think when you take into totality the one and done phenomenon, okay? We were talking to somebody a few weeks ago, and they were talking about 4 years of Patrick Ewing on the Georgetown Hoyas. 4 years, you got to know that team. You got to know David Wingate, and you got to know all the different players that they had over the course of 4 years. Patrick Ewing would be a one and done, right? Now he'd be going in straight out of high school or whatever. That's fine. That's just the nature of the evolution of sport. But you add the transfer portal into that, where 7 guys come in for a year and then 7 guys leave, and then 7 new guys come in for a year and then 7 guys leave. This fan base is already hard to please when it comes to men's basketball. Really hard to please. You can be really good. You can have Buddy Hield for 4 years, go to the national title game, have the national player of the year, go to the Final Four, I should say, and have the national player of the year, and still have 4,000 empty seats for a game against Texas. That's how hard to please this fan base is when it comes to men's basketball. You start shuffling an entire roster in and out, is there any reason to think that this fan base is going to be pleased with what they see on the floor? In other words, they don't get to know these guys at all. And now they're being asked, hey, can you donate some money to your NIL collective so we can give it to these players that you don't know and didn't know last year and might not be here next year? Basketball in particular, college basketball, has gotten so weird when it comes to that stuff. I just don't think the fan base, especially a fan base like Oklahoma, that is traditional blue blood football, and hey, it's great if our basketball team is good too. I just don't think. I think it's a hard sell for the fan base, don't you?
Well, here's been the double-edged sword of the Moser era. Moser's gotten the crowds. You look at the Alabama game, and the crowd shows up, and it was great. And then that next conference game was Baylor. The student section's packed. It was a 6 p.m. tip. And for once, us media hacks aren't yelling at the fans. It was like, yeah, it was loud. There were a bunch of people there. It filled up, especially by that second media timeout for those 6 p.m. tips. That's just someone coming from Oklahoma City. It's tough to make that. It was packed and bumping, and they lose. Yep. They lost that Baylor game.
Soul-crushing Oklahoma State a couple of years ago. Same thing.
They had the OSU game where you thought it was going to be the ice storm. It wasn't an ice storm. You get free attendance. The place is rocking, and they get smacked. Yep. Like they were never in that game. That's the issue that Porter's had, is that he's done as good a job with the fan outreach. Like he's gotten the fans. They show up for a bad basketball team. It's been a bad product. This team is boring when they're not hitting shots. This Oklahoma fan base didn't want to watch Eddie Sutton basketball. They wanted to watch Billy ball, right? That was the war in state, right? For years, is that Oklahoma State, it's slow, it's boring, it's defense, Oklahoma up and all that stuff. This is not a Billy ball system. You know what I mean? Like when they're not making shots, there are 5-minute periods where we don't see a field goal for either team. And it's like, for someone who doesn't love college basketball, I've never had an attachment to college basketball. I cover college basketball. I hate college basketball. I think that for the most part, without the NBA talent, you get a lot of bad basketball across the country. I think the portal's made that worse. Porter's done a great job with the crowd part of it.
Yes.
I don't blame anyone, though, going into year 4 if they're in wait and see mode. Because what did they had? Disappointment in year 1. They weren't close in year 2. They got to 18-6 in year 3, and then the house of cards came crashing down. I think a lot of these fans are going to be in wait and see mode, and I don't blame them, because I'm in wait and see mode. It's like, yeah, they need to make it to quite literally mid-February before I'll be like, they might make the NCAA tournament, and they might be undefeated. And that's just what 3 years of watching this product has done.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So it'll be interesting. I'm intrigued, though. Here's the thing. I know that no one really cares about this. The personalities on this team, fantastic. It's as much fun as I've had at a media day. These are some great dudes. I want them to succeed.
Sure.
I like Porter a lot. I feel bad that I don't know how much Porter likes me because I feel like I'm always the Debbie Dad. Bob Prisbill and I were the ones asking if he's losing the locker room in year one. He did not like my question about losing to Oklahoma State at all, or to Texas at all last year.
Brian Chapman, director of pessimism.
Well, you guys know this. If you have listened to this, but you know I am a pessimistic person. That's okay. So I'm interested, but not optimistic. Is that fair? That
Fair.
Like I'll believe it when I see it. I do see what they're doing slightly different, which is a little bit more 3-and-D. I think they shaded towards saying we're not going to win these NIL battles, so let's keep the guys that we've got, especially at bigs. Get the young guys in Fears, and then get some older guys around him in the backcourt, and then try to go more analytics 3-and-D. I understand that. Is it okay to say I'm skeptical of Porter and this coaching staff's eye for 3-point shooting? Because I've sat in media days where we've been told there's no Rajon Rondos on this team, and they went out and couldn't knock down a shot. I've been told they've got shot clock guys, and that ended up being Grant Sherfield, and that was not the, you know what I mean? So I'm in wait and see mode. I see where it's different, but I'm not going to buy in. On the basketball front, Monday we'll have women's basketball media day, so I'll have a much different tune next Thursday when we meet, talking about that team. At some point next week, I think we're supposed to meet with all the softball newcomers as well, so that should be good. Some healthy distractions for Oklahoma fans, I think, as we get fully on into crossover season. All of our game day content will be up Friday, Saturday. I know that after what we've done with this team, talking about them for the last however long it's been, I know that you guys are all stoked to read about what we're going to pick and all that stuff. Please do. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Hoover and I, boots on the ground in Oxford, live blog, sights and sounds, everything from Oxford. We'll be on top of all that stuff. And be sure to give us all a follow at Sooners on SI on Twitter, at Johnny Hoover. I am at _Ryan Chapman. We've also got Dakota Gregory at Dakota Gregory. Bryce is at McKinnis Bryce, and Randall Sweet 5. You know him, you love him. He's still helping us out behind the scenes. Hoover, have I missed anything? Is there anything else? A lot going on in the world of Oklahoma.
Battle Series back this week?
Battle Series, they got technically not the Battle Series.
Oh, they got a scrimmage.
They're playing Seminole State Wednesday night. There will be no media after that, which means I will not be there. Sorry. They also have a doubleheader against ULM. I think that's this Saturday of Ole Miss. Then next week, we've got the Gasso Bowl, and then we'll circle back. That's OU MACU. I am pressing hard for a joint Patty Gasso, Jim Gasso press conference. We'll see if we can make that happen.
Awesome.
And then the Battle Series will cycle back through. That'll be the first Wednesday of November, so 2 Wednesdays from now, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to do this all in my head. I should not do this all in my head. That's the softball schedule. If there's ever media, I'll be there. If anyone are speaking words about OU softball, I'll be there. Otherwise, we've got a lot going on. So sometimes I need a night off. And that is what last night was for Oklahoma and Seminole State. All that stuff, though, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. I'm rambling. This is the Sooners on SI podcast. We'll talk to you guys live from the press box in Oxford. Vaught Hemingway Stadium. What an effing name for a stadium. I love it. It sounds regal. Nothing that happens there will be regal, but Vaught Hemingway. I love it. We'll be there, B Square, for the Sooners on SI postgame podcast. For who somehow still employs me. Thank you, boss. I'm Ryan Chapman. We'll talk to you guys on Saturday night.